So biochemistry is arguably one of the more tougher subjects because it's a lot of pathways and it contains a lot of information about the different elements in those pathways that you can be tested on. It also contains information about molecular biology laboratory techniques that people might not necessarily be familiar with unless they've worked in a lab before. So a lot of this information can be really boring for some people, and it makes the subject a little bit more difficult to learn. Unfortunately, as much as I do talk about understanding material instead of memorizing, biochemistry is one of the more memorization heavy topics. But you can learn biochemistry using memory techniques and other visuals that can help you put these topics into context. If you know, say, a metabolic pathway and the simple mechanics that govern these pathways, and how, say, one pathway is favored over another, you'll do pretty well on biochemistry. And the biochemistry questions that I had on my STEP exam, they weren't particularly difficult, but I do remember that they did require me to know biochemistry to a certain level of detail. And some of the questions were either you just knew it or you didn't. So don't be fooled into a false sense of security by people saying, oh, there wasn't that much biochemistry on my test, so don't worry about it. Well, there was a lot of biochemistry on my test. And everybody's STEP exam is different, so you've got to be prepared either way. So my first piece of advice is that it's entirely possible to excel in biochemistry without any knowledge of biochemistry or past biochemistry experience whatsoever. And I can at least speak for two people on this matter, and that would be myself and my girlfriend. I have had formal training in biochemistry, and I've also had a lot of experience doing research in molecular biology. But she never had any formal biochemistry classes or any kind of training before medical school. So the first time that she saw it was during our first year of biochemistry. And then the second time that she saw it was during our STEP studying. And I ended up helping her with biochemistry, and we both ended up scoring the exact same score on our STEP exam, which was greater than the 95th percentile. So she'll hopefully be matching into dermatology, and I'll hopefully be matching into plastic surgery here in the next year or so. And I also tutored biochemistry simply because I have experience in it. It was my undergrad degree, and then I also worked in a lab, so I like to think that the techniques that I use to help her learn biochemistry will at least bring you up to a level that will help you excel on your STEP exam as well. There's simply too much material to know in the short amount of time that you have to study for the exam, especially if you know that biochemistry is going to be a weakness for you. And mastering biochemistry early will allow you to focus more on the systems chapters later on. So that being said, I actually went through the first aid biochemistry chapter a few times over my Christmas break, and then I slowly looked at it repeatedly over the next few months before my dedicated study period. And first aid, I think, is just going to be the most valuable resource for you in terms of biochemistry. I think it covers a lot of the biochemistry you need to know for your exam without including too much detail. So use first aid as a guideline for what you need to know. And the same goes for UWorld. And UWorld is the question bank that most closely mimics the real exam. And UWorld's biochemistry questions in particular are a pretty good indication of how you'll handle biochemistry on test day. And also, I would just encourage you to look at other resources as well for clarification. I personally liked Goljan's Rapid Review Biochemistry, simply because it was written in a format that I was most familiar with given my past training. Also consider things like other YouTube videos, like my series. I'm hoping to help medical students understand biochemistry a bit better without all the costs associated with these other Step 1 resources like DIT. So that's it for my general biochemistry advice. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them in the comment box below. And I wish you best with your studying.